it completely upgraded my experience of being an athlete. Up until that point, it was a grind.
So walk me through, because you pass 1,000 games and you're in this process. You're at Winnipeg for 13 seasons, and you make the decision to go to the Rangers. In some ways, it reminds me of James Harrison, I think, coming out of retirement to go play for the Steelers and actually doing really, really well. Uh, how is that mental process? Because you've played a long time, you love the sport, you're having fun. You're one of the top assist point holders of all time. Um, why not retire? Why go to the Rangers? What is those dynamics? And you were the captain at Winnipeg. Walk us through kind of that psychology and that transition, and then getting to like, hey, now it's time to retire.
Yeah, I mean, I still loved it. Like, back to one of the first things we said, I loved it. I loved what I was doing. Wanted to keep doing it. I think like anything else, if you've ever read Pat Riley's book, like there comes a time in every cycle where it's like, hey, there needs to be new leadership, new voice. It was just my time to move on, and I knew that. I was aware of it. I felt it, and I was ready for like a new thing too, a new challenge, new opportunity, different excitement, and yeah, like, and I think also you have this mentality as an athlete where it's like, you know, I'll play forever. And I think I would have. I got injured my last season and was starting to have those thoughts of, okay, it's a Monday night. I'm in a hotel room in Columbus. My family, I have 3 kids. My kids, were growing up and they're, doing all their activities. And I'm sitting there going like, okay, what am I doing? I'm missing out on life in a way. And that's when I think it became clear to me that, hey, if I'm not like a 10 out of 10 all in on this, then you can't do this.
Yeah.
You just can't. And I didn't want to either. I wasn't willing to just be, you know, average or a 8 out of 10. If I'm not 10 out of 10, I can find different ways to use my time, especially with my family.
So you transition from the skating to the front office at the Rangers. Very different dynamic, very different perspective. And I think, I don't know why I keep, obviously I'm from Pittsburgh. Joey Porter, I remember watching several games where he's behind the scenes. And then I think it's Mean Joe Green, who has the most rings of any person who's ever been in the NFL, because he ended up being with the Steelers for what, 20 years after? He had won all the Super Bowls in the 80s or 70s, I should say, and then coming back and being a part of the coaching staff there, which is just mind blowing from that standpoint. But how is the dynamics um, being on the front office? Because you see it. I always say that great coaches are not great players, but they can see the greatness in players
Yeah.
and they know how to bring that out. And it wasn't that you were like just a coach or anything, but walk us through kind of that dynamics, the shift. And then I know we're going to skip a few things, but then walk us through the transition to Novus Global, and how that dynamic was from a coaching perspective and being coached.
Yeah. The light bulb for me was when I got hurt and I was still like around the team, but I wasn't playing. And I was like, this is kind of awesome. Like, I'm still around my teammates, still at the games. I can like talk to guys about the game and about things that maybe they could do differently or improve. But I don't got to go out there and get hit anymore. And I think that was another kind of moment where it's like, well, if you're not, that may not fit if if you don't really want to play the games anymore. So that to me was like, okay, I still love the game. I still love being a part of the game. I just don't love necessarily being in the game anymore. So that's kind of how I still think about, hockey going forward and maybe my potential role in hockey. And as far as the coaching with Novus Global, I started getting coached, in kind of my mid 30s. I had some, through leadership and the pressures, was just really dealing with a lot of anxiety, a lot of like panic type of. I was having like panic attacks before games, and saw some sports psychologists, psychiatrists. It was great. Like, I'm a huge proponent of all of it. It just wasn't really moving the needle for me. So a former teammate of mine introduced me to the gentleman that coached me, Dan Lefflar, who's now the president of Novus Global. And so Dan coached me for about 4 years, and it just clicked for me, because he was the first person to basically like call me on my own BS. Um, some of the stories I had about just kind of everything going on in my life, in the game, he was the first one to like challenge that and test it. That I wanted that. I maybe didn't know I wanted it, but when he was pressing on that, that's I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, you're right," And so that to me was when things started changing for me in a lot of different ways. And why I'm doing this now is like it completely upgraded my experience of being an athlete. Up until that point, it was a grind. You probably hear that all the time with athletes in any post game interview. What a grind that was. It was frustrating. It was sometimes fun and invigorating and thrilling, but it was mostly like stressful, all consuming. Just like when the game was over, it was a relief that it was over, and then I got to get ramped up for the next one, and then the cycle continues, and so it was exhausting. And that my why behind like why I'm doing this was to upgrade that experience for athletes, really, their occurrence of what it is to be a pro athlete.